Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next manga review. This is going to be my review for Chapter 1 of the new manga series, Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. This is the new manga series from Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, of course. He's writing this series, but it's Akira Okubo who's on art, who I believe was one of the assistants on Naruto. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I've had a few people ask for my thoughts on this, given that it's just recently started. Because I'm such a Naruto fan, so of course would I not have some interest in this? And definitely, I knew it was coming out, and I was definitely, wondering, like, should I do, what sort of coverage should I do about it? So the decision I've made is that I'm going to, at the very least, do this video here, which is reviewing Chapter 1, and then after this, I'm pretty much like, it's up to you guys. Do you want to see me review this series, like, weekly or whatever, like do more reviews of Samurai 8. So I suppose by the end of the video, definitely in the comments, let me know if you want to see me continue do coverage on this series. But anyway, let's get into Chapter 1. So we start off with a couple of color pages, which give us, I suppose, a little bit of the kind of world building background to the series. It's samurai, but specifically, it's like space samurai. The duty of the samurai is to protect the galaxy. That's the samurai's noble calling. And that this character here, Yasha, who is Dharma's master, says that it's her duty to keep at bay the one who brings destruction. Dharma's calling, his duty, is to seek out Pandora's box. And that within that box is spelled out the means that the warrior god Fudo Myoo once used to save the stars, and that to do that he needs to seek out the 7 keys that will open Pandora's box. And so there's a few other things that happen here as well. Dharma at this point reveals that with this master, with this body that I've been trapped in, I'm scarcely a samurai anymore, and even the light is. What he's talking about there is the fact that when we later see him, he is in this sort of cat form, and it's revealed that this isn't his actual body. He used to be an actual samurai with the cyborg body, but now he has this weird cat form. And it's also revealed that the cat form is blind. So obviously saying that his previous form wasn't blind. But his master just says, that chance appearance of yours must hold some meaning of its own. What is interesting about this is that there are some confusing aspects of this first chapter here. Of like, this appears to be this early setup of like, this seems to be Dharma being presented with, this is your duty for almost the first time. That this is the first time he's being told, this is what you need to do. You have to get the 7 keys, open Pandora's box. But we, in basically the next couple of pages, see a character who, by all accounts, seems to be Dharma's actual true form as a, cyborg samurai hunting the keys down. He even says, oh, I got one, 6 to go. But he's in his human-like cyborg form. But very clearly in this sequence at the very start, it's him in his cat form. So it's like, time-wise, how does that work? Because it all seems to otherwise make a ton of sense, because by the very end of the chapter, he finds, of course, Hachimaru is 100% for sure one of the 7 keys. And he gets this across by basically saying that Hachimaru is the 8th time that he's felt that he's found the first key. He says, Master, on the 8th try, I finally found the one. His name is Hachimaru, and he's the real key. My calling seemed to be 7 steps forward, 8 steps back, but now it's more like 7 times fallen, 8 times risen. There are 6 remaining keys remaining, and the journey ahead will be long and arduous, but perhaps with him at my side as he looks to the stars. So something needs to be explained there, I think, a little bit, because the other interpretation of this bit is that the sequence at the start with the samurai fight here between what appears to be Dharma's actual form is actually just part of this game that Hachimaru is playing, because the transition between this flashback and meeting Hachimaru is that he's playing a VR game. And I think in chapter 2, it's revealed that it is a VR samurai game that, to all intents and purposes, is more or less the way actual samurai fight. And that's more or less how Hachimaru has any sense of samurai fighting in the first place, despite his physical limitations, because he can do it in this kind of VR game system. So that's where I think some of the confusion arises, because then the question is like, wait, why is the game talking about the keys then as well, if it's this kind of world at stake level mission that Dharma's actually been placed on? And then why is Dharma his actual form in the game? And the reason you know it's him is because the dialogue from the other guy is that, like, and that settles it. You are the top apprentice of the great Yasha and the second generation head of the Kongo Yasha style, the wandering lone wolf as they call you, a samurai who travels only with his lion dog holder for a companion. And it's specifically stated later on that I think he is called the lone wolf when it's cat Dharma, and they make jokes about the fact that he's a cat, but he actually prefers dogs, and he's a dog person, hence the whole holder thing of being a dog. Similarly, he uses a move that is like Kongo Yasha style, which confirms that his master, the female character that we get to meet here temporarily, is this Yasha character. So there's definitely a timeline confusion thing there of like, how does that work, that like he's only told it's his mission to get the 7 keys and he's in his cat form, yet apparently in the past he was doing it already? So that's kind of confusing. So like, has he been in the cat form a couple of times or not? Are they different characters, or is it just part of the game with that transition? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, we do get introduced to Hachimaru, who is our main character. And what's interesting about him straight away is that he is incredibly weak. Mentally in a way, as well as his physical problems of the fact that he's hooked up to a house-sized life support system that's keeping him alive, that they literally state he will die within 3 minutes if he's not constantly hooked up to it, that his medical problems are so bad that he's never been able to leave the house. He's never properly been outside. Like, it's not that I suppose the idea is that he's not never been outside, but like he's never left, I suppose, the really basic boundaries of the house that he lives in and where the life support system is. And he has all of these problems. Like, he just bashes his hand against like the machine that he's using, and he thinks he's basically broken his wrist. Like, that's how kind of brittle he is and weak in so many ways. The other thing is that he has this fear of like needles and blades and stuff like that. The official translation doesn't say it, but I did notice that some of the scanlations initially were calling it like, was it trypanophobia, where it's like it was actually a fear of like medical procedures and stuff like that. I think that the basic idea gets across, that like they're meant to create the fact that he's maybe a little bit of a wuss, yet he wants to be a samurai, and how does that work? But I suppose it's understandable, because it is a truth about him that he physically is very weak, and that for him, like, I suppose it would make sense that he has this fear of these medical procedures that will ultimately help him have to hurt him in the first place. So, it's definitely interesting. The main dynamic you get with him prior to Dharma arriving is that his father is the one who looks after him. The mother is not really mentioned at all. Just yet, so I assume that will be something revealed later on. But his father really, really cares about him. His father's been the one who has invented all this extra kind of arms and limbs for him to allow him to do some stuff and at least move around to any sort of degree. He's invented all the stuff that's kept him alive, and he's getting attitude from Hachimaru. Hachimaru is not, exactly particularly nice to his father, but there's a level of understanding to it that I think works, because you understand that the position that Hachimaru is in is just so terrible. He wants to be able to go out there and explore the world and be a samurai, but because of his physical limitations he can't. So he sort of takes that frustration out on his father, but deep down he does actually care. And I think that that's the significant thing there, of like, when his father goes to get a part that could really help him to explore the world, he notes to his dog little holder thing that he's made that I was really harsh there, wasn't I? I shouldn't have said that. So there's that kind of nice aspect to it as well, of just that kind of father-son relationship. The other character we get introduced to here is this Ronin, who is one of these cyborg samurais, but he doesn't really subscribe to the whole protect the galaxy style thing. He thinks that's a bit of a joke and just wants to do things himself. So this is where we start to get explained some of the ways about, I suppose, how you basically become a samurai. So there's this guy who is revealed to be a bushi, who I suppose is basically a samurai warrior in training, but because there's a very technical way to become a samurai, he can't call himself one yet. So the way you become a samurai, apparently, is that there's this ball-like thing, which are basically come from the gods. It's implied that Myo-o, the warrior god, has sent these things down. These are these stars, basically, that come down, and these things will allow a worthy warrior to become one of these legendary samurai. And what you do is that you activate it, and a knife comes out of it. And the idea is that you have to commit seppuku with it, which is basically commit suicide, stab yourself with it, kill yourself. And if the ball deems you worthy, you're transformed into a samurai. If not, you just die. So the locker ball becomes the very important kind of thing here in this chapter of, this is also the thing, the part that Hachimaru's father is looking for, because he feels he can use this part to help power a life support system that could be remote, so that Hachimaru could go around in this kind of floating chair and at least kind of travel the world a bit. So, that's the significance here. So this guy actually dies. It's revealed that part of the reason, I suppose, why he dies here is because he can't bring himself to just stab himself. He has to wait until the Ronin basically pushes his hand and the knife in himself, and it doesn't work. So that's interesting. Then we get introduced to Dharma. What effectively happens is that Hachimaru throws a ball outside, but the ball that's brought back by his dog cat pet is actually this relatively big thing that looks like a Dharma. So he actually makes a wish on this. So he fills in one of the eyes and wishes for him to become a sturdy bushi, but he says, no, wait, even better, let me become a samurai like Fudo Myo, the shooting star, who flew freely across the galaxy. And also, please let Dad come back home safe and sound. So this is where I suppose the worthiness of Hachimaru begins to come to light, and I suppose Dharma, as a samurai, seeing certain aspects that are good within Hachimaru. So immediately him knowing the difference between a bushi and a samurai, but also how much he cares for his father are things that stand out. At this point, we also find out that this is when his father arrives on the scene. He's willing to pay 20 million yen for the locker ball. So that's a lot of money to this Ronin for the locker ball. And then, at this point, this is where we get the full explanation of the cyborg samurais and so on. And it also presents what I feel is one of the more confusing parts of this, is just how much does Hachimaru's father know about this stuff? Because what ends up happening is that it's kind of revealed that his father has either been inadvertently involved in some of this stuff by finding some parts that have powered his life support system, or knows more than he's letting on. It's kind of confusing, but we'll go through it. So it immediately seems like he isn't aware that samurais are not human. He's like, what? The samurai explains to him that samurai are chosen by a warrior god for being the most elite of bushi and given cyborg bodies. And he demonstrates this by literally having his face and neck sort of separate from the back of his head and neck, and revealing basically what appears to be his spinal column. But instead of a brain being in there, it's just this kind of mechanical top part. And he says that a memory unit called a ki, which is the spine bit, that resembles a spine becomes the base of the samurai. Everything around the ki is constructed of cyborg parts. The warrior god Fudo Myo left us these little stars known as locker balls. Only those found to be compatible with the locker balls may acquire these bodies. I do not die from losing limbs. I can walk through space as easily as I do on Earth, and I carry a special soul within me. But not just anyone could be a samurai. If you attempt connection with the ball and fail, you die. So that's the basic setup there for a samurai. We get the full understanding of how the actual conversion process from being a human into being a samurai happens later on, because we see it happen to Hachimaru. So we'll get to that. So yeah, he reveals he's a samurai. He shows him this by using a decorative sword, basically, not a real samurai sword that Hachimaru collects, to slice a candle in half, and kind of just showing that. And this is where it gets the idea of like, oh, but maybe some of the weaknesses in Hachimaru are that he potentially is a little bit of a coward. And as you see, in order to be a samurai, you must be prepared for death. Do you have courage within you? And the idea is that he can't even lift up the sword. He's afraid of pain. He's afraid of sharp objects. And these are the things that sort of bring him down. And it's an interesting kind of back and forth here. That, you know, it seems like they sort of come to this agreement that, oh, actually, maybe you probably aren't that good to be a samurai. And he kind of feels that, you know, I should have figured, you know, let me guess, there's no way a frail little toothpick like me could possibly make it as a samurai. And he says, physical form isn't the issue, then it's the mental side then. Not that either. And he tries to convince himself that, you know, I am prepared for death. I know what it means to be a samurai. And he takes a knife and is about to commit seppuku, but can't bring himself to. And it seems like, oh, he's failed the potential test. This is then on the other side of the story when I think it sort of becomes a little bit confusing. Hachimaru's father is wearing this key around his neck. It says it's a lion dog pattern, a key that bites evil to keep it away. That's a key that holds back a samurai soul. I want the samurai soul of the famed blade Dojikiri Takatsuna, known as the blood-sucking sword. Where have you hidden it? And the father's like, I don't know what you mean, but it's not particularly clear if he's aware of this or not. But then it's kind of weird because he just touches his head and it's like he's going through his memories and then figures out where it's hidden. And to me, it's one of those things where, like, okay, if it's memories of it, like, if he doesn't honestly know what it is, then how can he search through his memories to find out what it is? Like, if he inadvertently just used this thing that he didn't know what it was as a power source, then I don't think there's any way the samurai could just look through his memories and be like, oh, this thing you didn't know about, that's where it is. It's kind of confusing, but ultimately I'd lean on the side of maybe the father is just good at tech, and some of that samurai stuff about the souls and the keys ends up being useful tech, and he just didn't really know. But anyway, what happens here is that they take the locker ball with them, and they take the father kind of hostage, and they immediately head to where Hachimaru is, because that's what's revealed. It's revealed that the key is inside, not the key, the soul, this sword, is inside Hachimaru. It's what's keeping his heart beating. It's part of the life support system. So he comes in through the roof, like immediately attacking. Dharma defends using a really, really cool technique. It's the Kongo Yasha style, which of course we saw before. So that's pretty interesting. And it's clear that the samurai, the Ronin guy, is like, the wandering lone wolf, but why are you here and in that form? So this guy knows that it's him. The wandering lone wolf is the name that was given to the guy from the flashback scene, and he's aware that he's in a different form, so what's going on? This is where Hachimaru is threatened with the fact that they have his father captured and that he's about to be killed if things don't go right. Dharma is kind of taken out by a blast. It's not implied that he's like really badly injured, but he just sort of stays in the sidelines while he just kind of watches what goes on. The Ronin also crushes the dog cat thing, which is a really, really kind of emotional scene. This causes Hachimaru to try and attack the guy, but of course he's attached to the life support system. And you can see that, like, he wants to help, that he does have the bravery and courage, because he's trying to fight despite physically being utterly incapable of doing so. This is where it's revealed that the thing is inside his heart. The samurai soul is in his heart. The key doesn't fully unlock it. There's also an identification code, and that code is the end of your heartbeat. So this is what he does then is he takes the knife out of the locker ball and says, "Use this to commit seppuku. Only then will I spare your father." And he basically says, "I'm a Ronin now, but I haven't forgotten my honest ways. I'm still a samurai at heart." And so you get this emotional moment of like, this is the moment of kind of truth. He is given the opportunity to commit suicide to save his father. But it's also him doing the way to become a samurai. Like, I suppose the Ronin is kind of making the mistake here of having him do it with this knife that could turn him into a samurai. And it's really, really emotional. Like the father is having like flashbacks to looking after his son. Hachimaru says just before he does it, "I've always loved you, Dad. Of course I have." As he does it, he actually does it. He kills himself here, and this unlocks the kind of chamber to his heart. The guy takes out the sword, and it is the Crimson Blade. So it is the sword that he was looking for, and he uses it to cut the life support system in half. So it's getting across this idea that like, this is how brutal this samurai is, that he didn't just, I suppose, have Hachimaru stab himself. He's now destroyed the life support system that could in any way give him a chance to survive. But what happens is that because he's used that knife, he's basically activated the sort of ritual to see if he's worthy. And the locker ball begins to activate. So what we get here is that the knife inside him, the sort of, I suppose cyborg kind of parts begin to come out of the knife and attach into him. The knife then sort of goes into him and becomes part of him, and I suppose creates the key without of his body is basically the way to say this, is that the knife kind of attaches onto his body and I suppose uses his body to create the key. So his body just disappears, and what we're left with is the kind of spine-like key and then the soul attached to the bottom of it. This then moves over and goes into the locker ball, which is a little bit further away. And then when those two things connect together, this kind of spiral thing happens, and out of it comes Hachimaru as a cyborg samurai. And we see him do the thing where he like kind of detaches his face from the back of his head, revealing the kind of key inside. And it's this really cool moment because his design is really, really cool. His hair gets a little kind of spikier, and you can tell he's not super thin anymore because of all of his kind of physical issues. And he's like, "I'm standing without a cane, no cords in my back." And Dharma says, "You've just received the mercy of Fudo Myo, the warrior god, and gained the power of the threefold body meaning. You have become a samurai." And he then is instructed by Dharma to put your hands on Hayataro, who is the dog that holder that he had that was killed, and says, "Now wish for the form he is meant to have." And so when he does this, this transforms Hayataro into one of these actual holders. So he gets bigger. He's now, I suppose, big enough to be ridden on, but he still sort of looks like the dog from before. So they then begin to tag team the Ronin guy. So it's pretty cool, with Hayataro using the scabbard of his sword, and then Hachimaru using the sword itself. They have a little bit of a tag team move. This forces the Ronin to put on his armor from his holder. And that's when Dharma chooses to strike. He fires a spirit blast, which I suppose he was hit with previously, at the armor. This gets rid of it. And then he says, "Now you can cut him. Show me the righteousness of your calling." And this is where we get a call back to the flashback sequence from potentially the game or the flashback of Dharma himself, of the exact same sequence of sacrificing your lead sword arm in the fight to hide your strike with your other arm. And he does that exact same thing here. And his arm grows back, of course, and it's revealed that what he used to take him out, to take out the Ronin, was a hidden blade. The arm that he had was the arm his father had made for him earlier, which was a kind of built-in cane, and it also had a hidden blade on the end of it. So very kind of cool there for sure. And it's like, this is the real you, Hachimaru, and you will no longer be standing on the sidelines. Now you can take action. So the ending, as I already read it out actually earlier on, it's the, this was his 8th try. This was his 8th attempt at, I suppose, finding someone who was the first key. And he feels that this is actually it. He's actually found one of the 7 this time. And that perhaps with him, he can finally accomplish his goal. So, that's the chapter. And I think overall, I do really, really like it. I think the art is overall very good. The overall writing, I think, is solid. I think only minor issues I'd have is that some of the art can be a little busy, and it can be a little difficult to just track what's happening panel to panel, in that just the information presented as you go panel to panel, I think, could be maybe presented in a little bit of a more obvious way. And some of the action sequences could be a bit better done. Mainly, like, if we are going to have a lot of samurai lunging at each other, final finish type things, I think he needs to get a little bit better at visually showing what's going on here. Because the final blow of Hachimaru versus this Ronin samurai, I don't think is presented particularly well. Because you just have, like, them going past each other, and you can see from the panel that, oh, okay, he gets his arm chopped off. But there's no indication in that panel that he did anything with his other arm. The length of the cane, you should be able to see the way his body is in the previous panel. The cane sticking out somewhere with the blade, that he actually did something there. So I think they should have been a little clearer about that and got across the cleverness by showing a little bit more. I hope they're not going to get into a thing where they just do this every time a fight finishes. They always do the lunge past each other, nothing's happened, pause, someone collapses, and then explain what I actually did. That's twice now in this first chapter they did that, and I get it was a callback. It was meant to be Hachimaru doing the thing that happened earlier on. And it's weird because, again, this is another thing where you can look at it as, like, if he was just playing the game, that's exactly why he was able to do this technique, in that he did it in VR so he could do it here. But also there's the significance of, if it was actually something Dharma did in the past, then of course that would be why he sort of is further inspired by Hachimaru, someone who has done something just like he did in the past. So, that's pretty interesting. And then, yeah, and I think that leaves, the only, honestly, properly confusing thing being, what is that flashback actually meant to be? Effectively, I suppose, what is page like 4, 5, and 6 of it, of the lone wolf, who again we got confirmed as him. It's directly said, you are the apprentice of the great Yasha. But what is this sequence? When is this taking place? Because it doesn't really seem to fit with, like, the first page where it said, like, this is your mission, but you're a cat now. And so that to me is slightly confusing. And now it could be one of those things where, like, they're just visually showing it like this, but, like, in reality he was a cat at that point in time, but they just wanted to show what his actual form was like. But I'm not really sure. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, Chapter 1. I am aware that Chapter 2 is out in the kind of scanlations. I'm probably going to wait for the official chapters, especially for the first couple. I think it's good to get the official translations, just to clear up what the exact terminology is meant to be on a lot of this stuff. I read the scanlations, and I think it's a good second chapter. I like the focus. It's, they're doing the thing where they're building up the, I suppose, the other characters, the group that I suppose Hachimaru is going to be traveling with. And yeah, I'm definitely excited of just the simple, story they can now tell with Hachimaru of, him experiencing the world now that he's free to do so, and everything's going to be new to him. Every experience is going to be a learning one for him. Dharma being more experienced, and having such, confidence in Hachimaru now, but how is he going to go about introducing him into this, I suppose, bigger world where there's 7 keys, Pandora's box needs to be opened, and is there a deeper situation there in terms of like when all the 7 keys are found, do they have to like sacrifice themselves, or is it a thing where like their keys can be temporarily separated from their bodies with no damage being done? Because I have a feeling that could be some sort of a twist that comes in later on, where it's like, are these 7 willing to sacrifice themselves to make this thing possible? But yeah, like it's one of those things where like at this point you're sort of waiting for like, okay, this is really, really good setup. What is the villain going to be? Like, what is the actual threat going to be in the end? Right now it seems like the threat is just that there's one sort of god opposite to Fudo Myo, who is the like bringer of destruction. Is it just that god, or does he have forces, and is there people like it seems like the samurai sort of worship in a way Fudo Myo? Are there people out there who have the opposite views and they would worship the bringer of destruction? Are they the people who we're going to be up against, like people who are, I suppose, potentially doing something similar on the other side of things to get him back? Like, I suppose in a way, like if bad guys open up Pandora's box with the 7 keys, does it unleash the bringer of destruction? And then what does that say about Yasha here, who is seemingly one of the more powerful samurai? When she says like that she's keeping him at bay, is she fighting him right here and now? Is he here? Or what? I suppose it's probably some sort of a setup where like he's present in some sort of a form that can be managed, but that if someone does something, it could get out of hand, and that's why they still need to do the whole Pandora's box thing. So I like the lore setup. There's a bit of mystery there, but I think the main thing ending this video is, do you guys want to see me review Samurai 8 and do the chapters weekly or whatever? Definitely let me know, because it's one of those ones where like if I only get like 1 or 2 people saying yeah do it, I don't really get the best judge about like if those videos are going to get views or not. So definitely if you watch this video, let me know either way if you want to see me review the series or not. So that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.